Can you hear me? At the first, Betsy Meads, and I am an unaffiliated voter.
Okay.
At the 1 hour, 39-minute mark in your last meeting during a discussion about bipartisan temporary office workers, Chairman Brown made the following remark. If something goes down, we don't want you all to have to worry about that. If you got 2 Republicans working in here, that's not going to set well, especially with the things that are going on in this country now. I'm getting phone calls, and I'm sure some of you are getting phone calls too. My question is, what do you think is going down if 2 Republicans are working? I don't know why any Republican would want to work temporarily in this office with that comment. Now, as to the first day of One Stop. But on the first day of One Stop, a Democratic North Carolina House representative, a Democratic U.S. congressional candidate, and the city mayor led a march that included the ECSU band marching into the driveway entrance to One Stop, hindering traffic and stopping in front of K.E. White Building where voters access. While the band played in the grassy area, beautifully, may I say, members of the congregation, my guess 40 to 50, stood in the voting parking spaces. Again, stood in voting parking spaces. A truck with a revolving light on top of the cab, which we assume was a security personnel from ECSU, blocked part of the access, and a Black Voters Matter van blocked the driveway beside it so voters could not enter and park to the left of the front door. They literally were blocking access. North Carolina Representative Howard Hunter's camera file of this event lasted 12 minutes and 19 seconds. At the 12-minute 3 mark, Emma can be heard telling him that they must leave as they were blocking voter spaces. Nothing was said about vehicles blocking the entrance to the front of the building, just to the left of the circle. At that point, filming stopped, but the Black Voters Matter van positioned itself to the right of the entrance as you exit and blocked access there. I was told when a voter could not access the buffer zone when she went to vote, she went to the rear of the building and tried to enter at curbside voting and was denied access. While I was not there, I was also told that ECSU security was participating in this event. What is the rule about law enforcement at the polls? Any law enforcement. Per memo 2020-30, it is a crime to interfere with any voter's ability to access the voting place. If they can't get to the buffer, you're accessing the voter place. Ladies and gentlemen of this board, voters were denied their civil right of voting in Pasquotank County on the first day of One Stop.
We thank you, Ms. Meads, for your comments.
Yeah, Angelique Boylan, 907 North Poindexter Street, Elizabeth City. My first comment is concerning the last Tuesday meetings that you just approved. The GOP for Pasquotank has photos and video over 12 minutes long of both the vehicle entrances to the front door of One Stop Voting, which were blocked for 15 to 20 minutes. There's 2 separate videos, one over 12 minutes, one over 3 minutes, and there's space in between that wasn't videoed. So it is over 15 minutes. They were blocked by both people, the ECSU security truck, and a Black Lives Matters van. And there is also a voter who was turned away from the back door who was trying to get in because she couldn't get in the front parking lot by the curbside poll workers. So just to clarify, there are videos and photos available. They're all time stamped and they do show that. Secondly, we have a question. Some GOP workers have found that when we pulled the 11-1, which was this morning at 5 a.m., NC SBE download, there was a total of 5,819 in-person one-stop ballots noted there. However, on closing on 10/31, we verified 5828 in-person one-stop ballots on the ballot machine. And then this morning at opening, there was also 5828 in-person one-stop ballots on the ballot tabulator. The NCSBE download did note that there were 255 mail-in ballots, but those would not be indicated on our tabulator. They don't go in that machine. And there were 6 email ballots for a total of 6,080 total ballots. So our question is, where did the extra ballots come from the 5828 and the 5828 at our one-stop location and the 5819 that North Carolina State Board of Elections shows?
We do not respond.
My comment is about the White Center, which is our south precinct. It's been kind of out of control outside there for about 2 hours now. There's loud music. Every one of the voter parking in the front of the building has been used by people getting free food out of 4 food trucks. It was advertised as vote and eat. Vote and you can eat. That's bribery. It's a federal violation of law to offer food to come and vote. There's also incidences of people who are asking people standing around, which includes some of our candidate managers, and they are asking if they can vote if they're out of county and not registered here. Because these people are coming from surrounding counties. It's been advertised all over Facebook and all over Seoul News. And now it's beginning to make national news because this isn't the only county that it's happening in. So we need some control out there, and we need the parking lots in the front of that building cleared, and we need those food trucks gone that are creating havoc and people can't come in and vote.
Thank you for your comment. Parking only, though.
No, we took those signs up because they were from one stop.
Oh, okay.
But they're going back out. And anybody who, I mean, I don't know exactly what plan they're working out to get everybody moved, but stuff is moving.
Okay.
So the persons who parked in those spots, they were not identified and they just parked, but when they were asked to move, they did move.
Well, I don't know, because that was this morning. So that's been a while since I went out there to ask some people to move their cars. Troy said that he talked to like 35 people and only 5 or 6 of them were there to vote. And that the problem is trying to identify whose car is whose. But like I said, he's on the phone with the state board right now and they're doing something.
So he will let us know when he
I mean, I would imagine so, but I don't know how long that's going to be.
Well, I mean, that's fine.
He's going to get the situation under control
Right.
first.
Okay.
What does under control mean in terms of allowing non-voters to be parked on the grounds for whatever purposes other than being there to cast their ballot?
I mean, like I said, we're going to designate voter parking only spots, and those will be for the purpose of voting only.
Right?
But once again, there's nothing that says we cannot allow
An observer or anybody else, huh?
no, like the food trucks to be there or for people to utilize those services. It is 100% true that any type of service rendered like that at a polling place, there cannot be any condition that you are there to vote and you've shown proof that you're there to vote or whatever to be able to get that stuff. So anybody off the street is allowed to go up and get food from the food truck.
Right.
It cannot be a condition that they've voted.
And if this
Because-
was sent out to you by them,
Yeah.
and the stipulation was
There's no stipulation.
in the spirit of the community. So it's not paying people to come and vote.
Like I said, we don't have a full resolution to this yet
Mhm.
because it's ongoing,
Right.
but
Let
it
me-
is ongoing.
Let me ask the question too, because during early voting, and I'm talking about people being on the premises. During early voting, there were tons of people out there that weren't voting, but they were there.
Hmm.
And I guess as long as they're not prohibiting someone from voting, they can be there. Am I correct?
Right.
Okay.
And I,
Just as long as they weren't parking in, designated voter parking spots,
Okay.
and when I went to vote, that some people out there giving out refreshments and
which is fine.
but to anybody that came
That's
up.
correct.
Right. Once again, it just cannot be a condition that,
Right,
that in order to receive those things, you have to vote
right.
or provide proof that you voted.
I mean, that was doing one stop, and and I said, oh, of course I didn't go over there, but I just saw that they were giving that they were out there doing that, so,
Hmm.
and there was no complaint.
Well, referring back to Don Carter's incident report regarding the lady who was in her truck
Hmm.
uh, conducting business or whatever, said she was an observer. That's about the same situation. I mean, it's nothing illegal about her being there, parking where she wishes.
It is if they're in curbside voting area.
No, she wasn't.
Yes, you were.
Yes, she was.
Yes,
Yes,
she
she
was.
was.
No, I
And she
thought it
didn't
was
move.
in those
Assistant
spots
and
well
control.
behind it,
No.
She was right there in the area.
in the lanes.
Hmm. And then the thing said that she didn't move when they asked her to move.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Right,
Okay.
so that's entirely different.
Yes, ma'am.
She was not giving out food,
Uh-uh.
so.
But like I said, this situation here is being handled right now. It's ongoing. And I don't have any other information
So
at this
did
time.
the chief judge have voter parking signs?
Yes.
She didn't put them up?
I didn't look for the voter parking signs when I was there.
Okay, yes, my name is Virginia Wasserberg, and I'm actually on the board of the Pasquotank PAC. And I just want to agree with Mr. Rivers about the staff here, from Ms. Tate and Mr. Troy. I don't know your last name. Wait, I'm sorry, but yes, I was an observer on the inside with the Republican Party, and from what I observed in the one-stop voting, anything that came up, they were attentive. They answered the call on everything that came up. So I appreciate that, and I think I made that known to them. So I agree with him that they did a great job. However, I did go back and I watched some of. I wasn't able to stay here for the entire meeting yesterday, and I went back on the YouTube page and I watched some of that. And some question came up over, I guess, the food trucks that were at the South Precinct on Election Day, and I visited the food truck because during my lunch break I heard there was food. So I went to go get some food, and I just wanted to kind of give you guys an idea, my testimony as to what happened. I went to a food truck. I went to the Wings and Things food truck, and I said, "Is this where I get the food?" And he said, "No, you need to go to White Tent and get a token." So I went over to the White Tent and I asked for a token, and I was told that I had to sign in order to get a token. And I kind of said, "Sign in to what?" What information do you want? They wanted my name, my address, my email address, my phone number. And I said, "Well, what organization are you with before I give you all my information?" And they informed me that they were with ABC2, which I believe, I went back and looked at it, which is a better chance, a better community is the name of the organization, but it is ABC2. And I said, "Well, I don't really want to give all my information because I get all this, email and phone calls and text messages." And they kind of said, "Well, if you don't sign up, you can't get a token. You can't get any food." But I was able to eventually get them to give me a token. I went and I got some food. They were handing out voter guides at that table where you get a token. And the voter guides were from a group called Democracy North Carolina. And it was kind of like more of like the judicial voter guide. So it was bipartisan in that voter guide. There was information that was in there from Republicans and Democrats. Some Republicans did not answer the information. They didn't give in their answers to their questions. So some of the Republicans were not represented in their views in that voter guide. But anyhow, so then I did a little bit more research between the election date and today, and I found out that there is, I guess there's a statute or a law that says if you're going to be participating in giving out food at polling precincts, you have to file your campaign with the state. And I looked it up on the state's website, and I did not find a Better Chance, a Better Community that they had filed with the state. So I appreciate again that Troy, that you took care of that situation, because it seemed like, from what I can see, that they were out there giving away food for votes and they did not file to do that. So I think that needs to be in consideration in this board. And I will say that it was on the Wings and Things website. I'm sorry, on their Facebook page. Wings and Things said, and I have a screenshot of it. If you need that, you can ask me about it. They said that food was provided by, I believe it's Chester Williams, Mr. Chester Williams. And so Mr. Chester Williams is in charge of the ABC too. So I just think moving forward, if everybody, does what's legal, that would be great. But I know there was some question about that with this board here yesterday. So I wanted to give you my testimony on that.
So we cover everything. Do we have anyone that would like to speak to public comments today? Okay.
I'm Angela Boylan, and I'm a voter in Pasquotank County. I have an incident report that hasn't.
Angie,
Can you hear it?
could you?
No. Can I sit and do this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That might be easier.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear it now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. This is an incident report that has not yet been filed. I didn't realize we had left it out. But on Saturday, October 29th at early voting, 2 15-passenger vans from Melton Grove Baptist Church in Windfall pulled up to the K.E. White Center off of Weeksville Road. They were met at the front of the campus by Keith Rivers, who was driving a black Nissan Titan 4-door truck with a yellow sign on the side that had black font with the telephone number 800-888 Our Vote written on it, and instructions for people to call that number for trouble voting, help, or voting questions. Mr. Rivers directed the drivers of the 15-passenger vans to go down the side of the campus to the back of the K.E. White Center in curbside voting. The observer walked from the front of the campus to the back to observe the vans as they pulled into curbside at 1:40 p.m. and took the picture of the vans, which is attached, which I'll send to Emma. Then turned the camera off as she got closer to the voting area where the vehicles were coming into the curbside voting as an observer, and observed the following in the time frame of about 20 minutes from 1:40 to 2 p.m. The 2 15-passenger vans pulled up to curbside and parked. Each driver of the vans exited the vehicles and stood in the curbside road area as the curbside workers approached the van in the front. Another vehicle with an African-American female pulled into the curbside traffic behind the second van. The observer was standing on the sidewalk of that area of the campus, and from their point of view, could see that in the first van, it appeared that there was only a voter in the front seat and maybe another voter in the back. And in the second van, it appeared she could only see one voter. Keith Rivers drove his truck to the back of the campus road behind the parking lot where curbside was and stayed in his truck as he waited and observed the passenger vans enter into the curbside line. While waiting in his truck, he called out to Troy White to go over and speak with him. The observer observed Mr. White leave the curbside area and walk in between the black minivan and the first 15-passenger van to go to Mr. Rivers and talk to him while curbside workers started working to help one voter in the first passenger van. They appeared to have a friendly conversation, and when Mr. White was finished speaking with Mr. Rivers, he and I had a small conversation about the rules for curbside workers, giving one ballot to a person per vehicle at a time, and then went back into the building. Then a female African-American middle-aged member of the public pulled in a vehicle she was driving into the parking lot behind the curbside area. She exited her vehicle and carried 2 white styrofoam covered plates to the drivers of the 15 passenger vans, which were still congregated outside the van. The 2 male drivers of each took a styrofoam plate from the female and proceeded to have a conversation that appeared friendly. The female then went back to her parked vehicle. I observed Troy White coming out of the building at that time with a yellow safety vest on to help the curbside workers with the 2 15-passenger vehicles. Then I observed the African-American female that was parked in the lot beside curbside exit her vehicle, carry out of the vehicle a large clear plastic bag filled with white styrofoam covered plates similar to the plates she had previously given to the drivers of the 15-passenger vehicles. The female carried the bag to the vehicle in the curbside line that was parked behind the second 15-passenger van. She opened the door to that vehicle, placed the clear plastic bag of styrofoam plates into the vehicle, had a conversation with the female African-American that was driving that vehicle, and then she closed the door and returned to her vehicle parked beside curbside and got inside it. Mr. Rivers then drove off away from the curbside area, and the lady in the vehicle that was parked that had distributed white styrofoam covered plates drove away. One of the curbside workers then instructed drivers of the 15-passenger vans that they needed to return to their vans. The driver of the first van seemed upset about that instruction and informed the curbside worker that they were standing outside of the van to give the voters in the van privacy. The curbside worker then told them again to return to the vehicles and that he didn't want any trouble. The 2 male drivers then returned to the driver's side of each van, got inside, and closed the door. I left the curbside area, this particular observer did, at 2 p.m. while the 2 vans were still being attended by curbside workers and Troy White. An additional observer who stayed there counted that 2 ballots went to the first curbside van, which was a voter enclosure, and 5 ballots went to the passengers in the second van, and that a GMC envoy with new tags came back and forth multiple times talking to the people in the vans, which were a voting enclosure. So I will make a copy of that with both observers' names, as well as there's a third observer to the same incident that has a report as well, and we'll put them all together and give them to Emma with the picture.